I make 100K per month in my hospitality business as a solopreneur. Today's question that I received asks, should you start a business in something you have no advantage in? If you look at the statistics online, they'll tell you that 95% of people who start a business fail, which is crazy high, and it shouldn't be the case. But I think part of the reason is because most people are chasing trends they see online, which they've got no experience or background in. They're seeing all of these results from these YouTubers and online gurus and wondering, why am I not achieving the same as they are? Now, the problem is most of these gurus have a history and experience in their chosen field. So why would little old you compare yourself to them where they are now after years of hard work in their craft when all you've done is nothing yet? It's crazy to think and compare yourself to them in their advanced stages compared to your beginner stages. And as the saying goes, comparison is the thief of joy. So if you look up the statistics, they'll show you that the odds of starting a successful business are stacked against you. So just starting the business is already a daunting task. So I always recommend starting with something you already have an advantage in to get a head start, whether it's direct experience in that industry or just knowing the ins and outs or even useful contacts that you might have had already. And I always recommend to think about your added advantage before going full steam ahead. Honestly, if more people did this, they'd probably save so much time and be much more likely to succeed. But look, I get it. We've all been there, even me, and we tried different business ideas to see what works. But if you want to increase your chances, I recommend you stick to what you have an added advantage in that the average person just doesn't have. To make things easier to understand, I'll go through some of the disadvantages that I found when starting a business in something that I don't have an advantage in. Firstly, the obvious point is by not having industry knowledge, it makes it hard to know where to start. I would miss obvious things that an experienced professional would take for granted, from knowing the right suppliers to knowing their customer better than I would. And that knowledge only comes from having experience. What I found is that it's not just about the high level understanding of how all the little jigsaw pieces come together to make a business run well, but it's also about these small, nuanced details that you only get when deep in the trenches. Those small details can mean the difference between staying in business and being in debt. There's also the competition that you have to think about. Your competition are the people and companies who've been around the block, and they have that expertise. They already have the customer loyalty and the efficiencies of scale that come with an already existing operation. So competing against them from a standing start means you literally need to work that much harder to carve out your own space in the market. So at that point, it's not just about being good. You have to offer something different or better to capture the rest of the customers from your competition. And so far, I've just mentioned the negative aspects of starting a business in something that you've got no advantage in, but I also want to share the positive side of starting something in a new field. One of the advantages is that you're usually coming with a fresh new perspective, and sometimes that's exactly what you need to start something new. You might see opportunities that other people may overlook because that's all they've ever known. This could be your chance to disrupt the market with a new product or service that addresses gaps that other people haven't really discovered yet. There's also something really satisfying about learning a new skill. You grow both personally and professionally, and it pushes you out of your comfort zone because the journey itself usually leads to new perspectives that you wouldn't really have the fortune of knowing previously. If you have previous business experience, starting a business in something totally new could be a good chance for you to discover what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at, what you're not good at, and what gives you transferable skills that you can use in your next business until you reach that eureka moment and land on something that works for you. So this whole process of self-discovery also helps you know yourself better, which allows you to understand when to take on tasks and when to outsource. And knowing your limitations means you can scale that much faster. So in short, doing well in business is usually the result of you really understanding and knowing your strengths and weaknesses from trial and error. I think most new entrepreneurs go through these steps at some point early in their journey. Most people give up after a few tries because they see very little traction. But the few that do persist usually end up doing really well because they gain a newfound wisdom of their strengths and weaknesses. At least this is what happened to me and everybody else I know. And this allowed me to better position myself going forward, which means that I'm much less likely to make mistakes because I'm only focusing on my strengths whilst finding others to manage my weak points. So in short, if you have a specific advantage over the average person in a particular business idea or niche, I recommend you start with that. But if you have no experience or advantage in anything, then I recommend you try enough business ideas on a small scale until you land on something that works for you. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and subscribe if you're an aspiring or existing entrepreneur, because I'm sure that we're going to cover many of the issues that you go through on your journey.